Breaking now. Prince William has publicly confronted Prime Minister Keir Starmer, ending what royal insiders are calling the silence of the crown. It happened at 8:02 p.m. in Manchester during what was supposed to be a routine Veterans Remembrance ceremony. No one expected fireworks, no one expected history. Yet, in a single sentence, the future king shattered decades of quiet neutrality and ignited a political storm that has already engulfed Westminster. The scene looked ordinary: rows of veterans, wreaths of poppies, a light drizzle falling over the memorial square. But when Prince William stepped to the podium, the energy shifted. Cameras zoomed in as his expression hardened, his tone calm but unyielding. "The people who serve this nation," he said, "deserve better than political excuses." The air froze. No one moved. For a heartbeat, even the cameras seemed to hesitate, capturing the silence before the wave hit. Within minutes, that line was everywhere. Newsrooms cut into live programming. Reporters shouted into microphones about a direct rebuke of the Prime Minister. The BBC, Sky, and ITV all confirmed the quote. It wasn't offhand, it wasn't vague, it was deliberate. And as one royal correspondent whispered live on air, "The monarchy has just spoken for the people." By noon, the clip had circled the globe. William V. Starmer and Your Royal Speak exploded across social media, pulling millions of views in under an hour. Twitter users called it the moment Britain found its voice again. One viral comment read, "When Parliament forgets its duty, the palace remembers." The crowd outside the Manchester Memorial chanted his name. Veterans saluted, families waved flags through tears. For them, this wasn't politics, it was recognition. Inside Downing Street, shock turned to panic. The Prime Minister was in the middle of a Q&A session with regional reporters when the first question hit, "What's your response to Prince William's criticism?" Witnesses say Starmer froze. He tried to smile, but his voice cracked. "I respect the monarchy," he replied, "but I won't comment on private remarks." The problem? They weren't private anymore. His tone betrayed the truth. He was blindsided. Phones started buzzing in the background. Advisors exchanged nervous glances. Within 20 minutes, the clip of Starmer's reaction was trending alongside William's statement. Commentators compared it to a boxer trying to smile after being knocked out. One political editor on Sky News said bluntly, "This is the day the Crown found its voice and Westminster lost control of the conversation." Downing Street scrambled for a strategy. Some urged silence. Others demanded a counterstatement. Aides debated whether to contact the palace directly, but by the time they agreed, the story had already moved beyond their reach. The public wasn't waiting for government talking points. They were already forming their own. Verdict. Meanwhile, the palace corridors were calm. At 2:10 p.m., Buckingham Palace released a short but unmistakable statement. The Prince of Wales's remarks were approved in advance. That single line detonated across the media landscape. Royal sources confirmed the king himself had said 6 words before the event. Let him speak. It's time. For a family known for discipline and restraint, those words carried thunder. Behind the scenes, advisors braced for backlash. None came. Instead, applause. Even critics of the monarchy admitted the tone was flawless, measured, moral, and unmistakably British. By a moral stand disguised as a speech, wrote The Times. A son speaking truth where politicians offer spin, added The Telegraph. The usually reserved royal press corps described the moment as controlled defiance from a family known for silence. Crowds began gathering outside Kensington Palace that evening, leaving poppies and handwritten notes. "Thank you for standing up," one card read. Finally, someone said it. The nation that had watched its veterans struggle, its politics divide, and its leaders stall, now saw a royal step into the space where leadership had vanished. By the next morning, opinion polls captured the magnitude of the shift. 71% of Britons agreed with the prince's comments. Among veterans and their families, support soared above 90%. For the first time in years, the monarchy's approval ratings eclipsed the government's by more than 50 points. What shocked Westminster most wasn't just the numbers, it was the emotion. The prince hadn't sounded angry, he'd sounded disappointed. Calm disappointment from the throne carries more weight than any fiery debate in Parliament. His message was simple. Britain's soul was worth defending, and silence was no longer an option. News anchors struggled to keep up. Panel discussions stretched into the night. Former diplomats called it the most extraordinary public intervention since the days of George VI. Every major network replayed William's quote on loop, dissecting each word for meaning. The people who serve deserve better than political excuses. The phrasing was surgical. It was never named Starmer, yet everyone knew who it was for. By evening, Westminster was reeling. MPs whispered about a rift that can't be unseen. Party loyalists begged Starmer to stay quiet, but silence once again only deepened the wound. The monarchy had spoken and the people had listened. Palace insiders say the king watched coverage from Windsor and made no attempt to intervene. He believes his son was right, one source said. There comes a time when neutrality becomes neglect. Downing Street went into crisis mode before dawn. Phones rang nonstop. Advisors rushed between rooms with folders clutched to their chests. Emergency calls connected number 10 to Buckingham Palace, but the tone was icy. What began as a quiet panic turned into shouting behind closed doors. Keir Starmer's inner circle tried to control the message, but there was no message left to control. Every headline, every broadcast, every trending post was about one thing. Prince William had spoken and the country had chosen its side. At 9 a.m., Starmer finally broke his silence. Standing outside his residence, he told reporters that the prince's remarks were well-intentioned but poorly timed. The phrase landed like a hammer on glass. Within minutes, headlines read, "Starmer calls William's speech poorly timed." Analysts called it political suicide. Commentators reminded viewers that you don't lecture the future king while your approval ratings collapse. Even Labour loyalists grimaced on live television. Inside Parliament, younger MPs muttered the same warning in hushed voices, "We're fighting the wrong people." They'd seen the footage, the flags, the cheers. The crowd didn't look like extremists. It looked like Britain, veterans, nurses, shopkeepers, teachers, people who'd lost faith in politics but still believed in principle. The backlash was instant. Veteran charities released a joint letter defending the prince's comments, calling them an overdue acknowledgement of sacrifice ignored by successive governments. Church leaders weighed in too. The Archbishop of Canterbury posted a short message on social media, "Duty and service must never be forgotten." Within minutes, the post had 1 million shares. Reform UK capitalized immediately. At a rally in Birmingham, Nigel Farage declared, "When the Crown speaks for veterans, it speaks for Britain." The crowd erupted. Pollsters later called the moment a shift in political gravity. Analysts agreed these were the worst optics for a prime minister since the 1990s. In one weekend, Starmer went from confident leader to cornered politician. Across the nation, television screens glowed with the same image. Prince William standing under gray skies, his expression firm, his voice steady. Broadcasters replayed his line again and again. "Service deserves respect, not politics." The delivery was perfect, neither defiant nor pleading, just honest. That tone pierced through spin, through strategy, through years of political fatigue. By evening, the story had stopped being a controversy. It had become a movement. Crowds gathered outside Kensington Palace, waving flags and holding handmade signs. Some read, "Thank you, William." Others said, "Finally someone spoke for us." Veterans stood shoulder to shoulder with students. Families sang the national anthem softly under the glow of candles. Reporters described the scene as half vigil, half awakening. Polls confirmed what the streets already knew. 73% of Britons agreed with the prince's message. Labour's support cratered below 25%, the sharpest drop in modern political memory. Online forums flooded with one sentence repeated endlessly. He said what needed to be said. Every major network filled evening broadcasts with interviews from veterans and their families. A former Royal Marine named David Spencer, living in a shelter, told Sky News through tears, "We gave everything for this country, and it took a prince to remind them." Another woman, the widow of a police officer, said simply, "It wasn't politics, it was truth." The monarchy, often seen as distant, suddenly felt closer than ever. The king and his son weren't just symbols now, they were participants in the nation's conscience. For the first time in decades, the royal family felt like the moral heartbeat of Britain. By Sunday morning, the message was everywhere. The crown speaks, the country listens. That was the front page of every major paper. Even outlets known for loyalty to Labour turned on the government. One editorial read, "When your people cheer a prince over their prime minister, something has gone very wrong." Inside Westminster, silence reigned. Aides described the mood as paralysis. Starmer cancelled public appearances. Cabinet ministers avoided the press. Leaks from inside the Labour Party revealed frantic discussions about containment and survival. Several senior MPs reportedly warned that another day of silence could end the government. Meanwhile, palace officials kept calm. No new statements, no denials, no corrections. The royal household simply waited. Their restraint made the contrast even sharper. Where the government fumbled for words, the monarchy stood silent, untouched, confident, untarnished. Political historians began calling it a turning point. Some compared it to the abdication crisis of 1936. Others called it a modern rebalancing of power. The monarchy had not seized control. It had reminded the nation who it truly trusted. Across Britain, people felt that shift. The monarchy no longer seemed ceremonial. It felt necessary. "When politicians forget duty," one man said outside Buckingham Palace, "the royals remember it." That sentiment echoed across cities, pubs, and family dinners. By the afternoon, international headlines followed suit. CNN, "The royals break tradition and Britain cheers." Le Monde, "Crown defies government, wins the public." The story had outgrown politics. It had become moral theater on a global stage. Back in London, the palace gates glittered with flowers and flags. Tourists mingled with locals, but the atmosphere wasn't festive, it was reverent. There was a sense that something old had stirred again, a pride long buried under bureaucracy and headlines. At 8 p.m., news anchors summed it up in one sentence. A nation has remembered what its symbols stand for. And so the week ended, not with outrage, but with awakening. The king remained silent. The prince stayed out of sight, and Westminster braced for what came next. Britain, meanwhile, stood still, watching, waiting, remembering. The political noise had faded, replaced by something far heavier, a sense of reckoning. The narration slowed, reflective, prophetic. "When power forgets purpose," the voice said, "duty speaks louder, and now that the crown has spoken, nothing will sound the same again." A brief pause. The music swelled beneath the voice. "Stay with us, because the next royal word could rewrite Britain's future."